Hi, welcome to today's live stream with the Folk Institute. I wanted to introduce your host today, which is Anna Larson over here. And I am Selena Konmaki. We are part of the Folk Institute marketing team.
We are. Now, if you haven't joined us before at one of our live streams, the Folk Institute is hosting these live streams to bring important conversations to you about how you can grow personally and professionally, build a stronger workplace team, and then also to have conversations on diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, and the initiatives and other topics that your organization really needs to be thinking about. So we're super excited to be here today. We're super excited to talk about today's topic, which we're focusing on the fact that it's Women's History Month, and Dr. Carrie Spell-Hansson has invited Alaina Love on. And so we're going to get right to it. We're going to introduce them with their bios and just get started.
Yes. Okay. So first up, our super host, Dr. Carrie Spell-Hansson, is a thought leader, researcher, educator, and trusted advisor in organizational development, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and coaching. She founded the Folk Institute in 2004 to further the impactful work she was doing. You may hear us reference TFI, and that's what that represents, the Folk Institute. Carrie is an experienced keynote speaker and training facilitator that has offered workshops throughout the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Caribbean. There's so much more, but we're going to zoom in over to Alaina so that way we can get them both on the screen.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about Alaina Love. Alaina Love is the CEO of Purpose Linked Consulting. She's a nationally recognized expert in leadership, purpose, and passion, which I love. I want to be an expert in that. She's also the co-author of the best-selling McGraw-Hill book, The Purpose Linked Organization: How Passionate Leaders Inspire Winning Teams and Great Results. Now, over the past 18 years, Alaina has conducted research and developed programs to support and the development of executives and teams with a specific focus, leveraging purpose and passion to build inclusive cultures for everyone and create environments where women can thrive. Her work has shown that managing an individual's passions as well as their skills fuels performance and engagement, stimulates cognitive diversity, and builds the agility required to successfully navigate challenging times. So talk about an amazing guest today.
I know. I'm like excited. We should just bring them on, right?
I know. I'm going to do it right now. Here we go. Hi, Dr. Dr. Spell. Look at, I'm all over the place. Hi, Dr. Carrie and Alaina. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. It's great to be here. I am also. I'm really excited to be here and hanging out with Alaina. This is like always. It's always such a pleasure to have conversations with her. So this is perfect.
Ditto, Carrie. Ditto.
Alaina, I do want to share real quickly. Me and Anna and the rest of the TFI team get so excited when Dr. Carrie sends us an email of a guest she wants to have on. And then we get like really, really excited when they say yes. And we're just like, we cannot wait for the live stream so we can meet another fabulous person that is in the same stratosphere as Dr. Carrie. Like, it's just amazing. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We want to just make a quick comment to anyone who's listening live right now. Please interact, drop comments, leave suggestions. If you have a question, feel free to ask it in the comments. We can pull it up and share it with our two guests here. We would love to interact with you. Tell us where you're listening from, all of the things. Please let us know that you're out there. And we'd love to hear from you. It always makes our show so much more interesting and fun when we're going to interact with our live stream guests.
Yeah. I guess, Anna, let's just jump in, right?
Yeah, I think we just jump right in with our very first question.
Right. So I'll let you handle that.
Okay. So one of the things that we do at the Folk Institute is every month we have kind of an opening thought that comes out on our social media platform. And this month, because it is Women's History Month, the thought that we have is from Dr. Maya Angelou, who is just infamous for the amazing things that she says. But she says, I would like to be known as an intelligent woman, a courageous woman, a loving woman, a woman who teaches by being. And the reason that we pulled this is because Dr. Carrie, she was asked by NASDAQ in an interview what kind of entrepreneurial legacy she wanted. And this is the quote that she used, and she modified it just a little bit for her own personal. But this is the quote that you used, Carrie, to kind of just say what kind of an entrepreneur that you wanted to be. Can you speak on that a little bit and how being a female and an entrepreneur, how this applies for you?
Well, it's interesting because it applies to me not only as being a female and an entrepreneur, as much as just being a human being that happens to be female, and my willingness to just be me, to show up as me, be comfortable in who I am, and also all that I teach, that I exemplify it, that I live it, that so that my teaching is not only when I'm in front of a classroom or on a platform doing a keynote, in my everyday life, people that hang out with me, people that know me, that there's a consistency in terms of my ability to be courageous and to stand up respectfully, to stand up for who I am and what I believe in, regardless of the situation or the circumstances.
I love
I'm
that.
cheering for you, Carrie, as I hear you say that, because all of those qualities that are in that statement are how you change the world, right?
Thank you.
That's
Yes.
exactly how you do it. And
Oh,
living it and being it every day is the example.
100%. I get chills when I kind of see that quote, and then I hear you talk. It's just a great combination for sure. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Anna, you have a couple links you wanted to drop in the comments, I think.
Yeah, I actually just dropped I just dropped the article. If you want to read the full article that NASDAQ did on Dr. Spell-Hansson, you can read it at this link here that's now been dropped in the comments. It's really good. And I'm just going to say this, like the article really talks about how the reasons why Carrie started the business, her experience, both as a female and as an entrepreneur, and just her life experience that led her to where she is now. And anyway, I found it very fascinating, and I encourage everyone to just go click on that link and read it, because I think this is a great way to start out the live stream. I mean, what we just said, right? Everything in that quote is how we're going to change the world. Who changes the world? Girls, girls, right? Isn't that song by Beyonce? There's a whole song about it.
I could come up with so many. I know currently I'm a Lizzo fan and I love her girl empowerment songs all the time too. So, but Beyonce, yes, absolutely. Okay, love it. Please go click that link because I think it's super important to kind of read the additional things that we can't share in a short live, right? So, okay, let's dive into that first question that we're going to ask. You're going to see some shuffling of faces here. And Alaina, we're going to start with you with this question here. In your opinion, what is the most important moment in women's history and why?
Oh, that's a big question. I think the most important moment in women's history is right now. Right now. We have tremendous changes in laws that govern our protection over and decisions over our own bodies. I think we're at a inflection point in women's history right now, and our ability to navigate that inflection point will determine our future. A lot has come before that's allowed us to be where we are in our capacity to make all kinds of decisions, from the right to vote, the right to decide what name we're going to take when we get married. All of those things have been battles fought in the past that have led us to today, and I see that landscape shifting. And I'm not making this statement with any particular advocacy for any point of view on this, but I think our ability to make decisions about what happens to our bodies and what happens to our health is one of the most important rights for us to maintain. And I think it's where we are right now is one of the biggest moments in history.
Yes. Dr. Carrie, I'm going to pop you in here. I'm going to see, and give you the same question and then maybe a response to what Alaina has said.
Well, you know what? I have to continue with what Alaina was saying, and that is because all we have is now. So therefore this becomes the most important time. We can't, and again, all of the things that led us to this place and that got us to this place because of the women that fought on our behalf or knocked down or tore down barriers on our behalf was amazing. what we have is right now. What are we doing with right now? This becomes the most important moment. If we focus so much on what has happened in the past and we want to acknowledge it and give credence to it, and we also want to think about the future and where we're going and where we would like to be, what we have is right now. So I would have to agree with her. This is the most important and the most critical time. What we decide to do right now, right this moment, is what it's all about.
Hmm.
And I think, Carrie, with that, we have a responsibility for remembering the shoulders of giants that we're standing on, that's allowed us to be here and allowed us to learn from what we experienced in the past, bring that knowledge and learning forward and apply it to the future that we want to create.
Absolutely.
And I think the notion of being empowered to create a future rather than have one dictated is really what the giants that have helped us in the past have allowed us to do.
Excellent. Perfect way of saying it. You're right. The fact that we can decide and we have the power, and we're continuing to acknowledge and recognize that we have the power to determine our own future is based upon the shoulders that we stand on. I totally agree with you. Excellent. Awesome way of putting it.
And I was thinking of you earlier when we were talking about your what kind of an entrepreneur you wanted to be, what inspired you to do that. And I cannot help but believe there were some giants whose shoulders you were standing on that led you to that decision. I know it did for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? And for me, one of them was Shirley Chisholm. When I was in the 5th grade, Shirley Chisholm was my was the commencement speaker. And for the first time in my life, growing up in Brooklyn, for the first time in my life, I saw someone that was my complexion, that was fierce. In fact, the title of my research is based upon a book that she wrote and how she lived her life. And, you know, and my research is unbossed and unbroken. And that's how she lived. She was like the first, and those of you that don't know, please research and do some research on Shirley Chisholm.
Amazing.
She was the first Black, she was the first woman who happened to be Black that ran for president of the United States at a time when both men and women were saying, you know, she got death threats. And I remember in 5th grade her saying, it doesn't matter. I'm going to stand and I'm going to do and I'm going to be, and you could not shut her up. And so again, when I reflected on that, and the last thing I want to say on that is I actually forgot all about that until I started doing my research, and people kept asking me, well, where did you get this tenacity and this drive? And I was just like, I don't know, I guess I was born with it. And then I started doing the research, and then I somehow one day I remembered my 5th grade sitting in graduation, listening to this woman going, oh my gosh, I could do anything. So yeah, thank you for sharing
true.
that, Alaina.
It was my mom for me, interestingly enough. I mean, she was, born and raised on a farm in Maryland. You know, she came from very meager means and ended up eventually working in a sewing factory on a machine, making men's coats and jackets, and then decided that she would go into partnership with the man who owned it. And then she eventually bought him out and ran the business herself. With no business, quote unquote, business experience or background or training, no MBA. Her MBA was life, right? And she figured it out from there. And I think instilled in me the mindset that there was nothing I couldn't do.
Awesome.
I put my mind to it, and a really, really strong work ethic, which I guess is what, for those of anybody who's become an entrepreneur or started a business, that work ethic being instilled in you is the thing that allows you to get back up when you feel like you've been knocked down and keep moving forward.
Absolutely.
Having somebody in your life, whether it's Shirley Chisholm or some person that you've admired from afar or somebody in your own family that has paved that way for you, allows you to believe when there doesn't seem to be a reason to believe that you too can do it.
That's right.
We've been lucky, Carrie.
Absolutely. And continue to be, right. And then I like the slogan that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to jump in and just, if you're watching this live or on the replay, please share with us your most impactful person that has, in your life as a female woman, who impacted you. Just listening to Dr. Carrie and Alaina, I can go back to being in my 20s, and I was a manager, but mostly a male dominated field, and the number one on the property was always a male until the very first female came in as the number one. And I thought, wait, you can be in the number one position. And that changed how I looked at where I could go. And I thank you for I hadn't thought about that in a very long time because that was in my 20s. But thank you for so please share with us who impacted you in that way. And I don't know if she ever knew that she impacted me in that way and allowed me to think I can go far, like Dr. Carrie said. Like, I mean,
so
it's
there's
amazing.
something really interesting that you bring up with that comment, Selena, because I was reading through Carrie's research just earlier today, as a matter of fact. And one of the strategies that successful women have practiced is gratitude. Right? I think that was one of several that you mentioned in your research, Carrie. And there's been a lot of other research done in the field of positive psychology that looks at, what makes us feel happy. And one of the things that makes us feel happy is expressing gratitude. And one of the techniques for expressing gratitude is to sit down and write a letter to somebody who has done something or been something meaningful in your life, influenced you in a meaningful and important way, no matter how long ago it happened. So Selena, you can look that person up and write that letter and tell her what a difference she made for you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm going to tag you, Alaina, when I do that, and just say, I'm going to encourage. There should be a lot of gratitude, love, kind of, and energy going out into the world in the next couple of weeks, right?
There we go.
Yeah. Excellent.
I think it's just so powerful that what you were saying also, Selena, just the idea that you don't know when you're going to make that impact on someone, what you're doing, what you're saying. This live stream, somebody may listen to this and it may change the whole course of their world, their ideas, their thought processes, and you just never know, which is why I love so much that the two of you are on here having this conversation and being willing to say things, that sometimes we don't say out loud necessarily because it's not polite or it's not, it's not the thing that people talk about in company or whatever the reasons behind it might be, right? But I love that we're doing this. I did drop, Carrie, I went and just grabbed from the National Women's History Museum, the link on Shirley Chisholm. And I did drop that in the comments because if you have not heard of her, you definitely need to just read that short. It's like a one-page bio, but it'll give you this amazing powerhouse female from, I don't even know what years we're looking at.
He's primarily in the 60s.
The 60s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Really, and she continued into the early 70s. As I said, that the first woman to do so many things in politics, and we hear so little about her in the political arena. So
yeah,
thank you for doing that. And you know what? This goes back to the quote that we started with, which is what we're saying is that living, teaching by example. And as you said, sometimes people aren't even aware of the fact that they just by observing you or listening to something that you say or said, and it changes their life. So that's that teaching by example. You don't have to necessarily know the people that you're even teaching or being an example for.
I can bet there are so many people that have been impacted by you, Dr. Carrie, and you, Alaina, that probably, right, you don't even know. And I would be curious, if you have been, you should send them some gratitude energy and just let them know, hey, you know what, I don't know if you know this, but you impacted me in a really great way. So we're just sending out all the good stuff. Yes.
I can't wait to hear about the letters or the comments or the emails you guys get where there's just somebody saying, thank you for being part of my life in this way. That's awesome.
It means an awful lot when you do receive that, because a lot of times in the work that Carrie and I do, you don't really know for sure if it's landed.
Yeah.
If someone has had some change that they've experienced because of something you've said or done, or a workshop you conducted or a talk you gave.
Yeah.
You show up as your best whole self at the time that you do it, with the mindset that there's somebody out there that I'm here to talk to. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I'm here to talk to them. I'll never forget having to do a presentation, and I think it was for the Department of Labor. Can't remember, or HUD, one of those. And I was in Washington, D.C., and it was the middle of the pandemic. And they asked me to come in and speak to their entire staff. And everybody was home, right, working remotely. But they brought me into a studio. So I'm in the studio and there's like 3 people there. Somebody working the camera, somebody doing sound, and a huge auditorium of empty seats. Empty seats. There's one guy sitting in the seat and the camera's on me. And I'm looking up at the camera and I'm thinking to myself, somebody is out there that needs to hear this today. And I need to show up for that person some way, somehow. And interestingly enough, the next day or later that day, I get, some emails from people saying what they got out of the discussion. So I felt like, okay, I wasn't sure anybody was on the other side of that camera or listening, but it was really nice to get that acknowledgement. And for those of us that do this work in the world, it's this feeling of you're a pebble, and you're throwing yourself into the pond and you're hoping that there's enough ripples that make a difference for other people. And you do that on faith. You absolutely do that on faith each and every day that you wake up to do any kind of important work in the world. But there's always this moment where you get some acknowledgement from someone brave enough and kind enough, a moment out of their day to send you a little note. Time is the most valuable thing we have. And when people spend any of it to acknowledge something I did, I'm always very grateful to hear from them and to engage in dialogue with them. So thanks to those who say thank you.
Absolutely. Great way of saying it.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to just say this too. It's the perfect lead in to our next question.
Yes.
Because, I mean, your business and the name of your business, the book you've written, all the work that you do is about leaders understanding that purpose, why they're there, why they're doing what they do, right? Mm-hmm. Can you just talk a little bit about what that means and how it supports the growth of women leaders kind of just in general, I guess?
Well, this body of work that I do is a really personal experience for me. I was a corporate executive as a woman, the first woman to have achieved that level and that function. And the first person of color. All of my colleagues were men. And so I understood what it was to try to navigate this, sometimes torturous path of being successful as a woman, being respected as a woman, as a colleague, and being heard in an organization. And I wrestled a lot as I was doing my work inside a corporation about whether or not that was where I was supposed to be. I loved what I was doing for a really long time. And there came a moment where I thought to myself, there's more that I'm supposed to be doing in the world. And what I'm doing now, even though I'm good at it, doesn't feel like it's aligned with the purpose I'm here to achieve. But if you had asked me what that was, I could not have told you. With any degree of eloquence what that was, because I'm not sure I had navigated it in my own brain. But I made the decision to resign from the organization and start this business. And for many years, I wrestled with this notion of purpose because I had been an HR executive and I had watched people make different decisions about their careers. And sometimes people left the organization that I was sorry to see go and felt that it was a real loss. I looked at myself making the decision to leave the organization because I didn't feel that deep connection between my purpose and the purpose of the organization, and thought to myself, if they could lose me, who else are we losing? What else are we not getting about how to truly connect with the hearts and the souls of the people and the brains of the people that we're bringing into organizations? So that's where this sort of purpose work was birthed, trying to seek out a way to describe purpose. And in all honesty, I describe it through the back door. I look at the passions that people express. I've done research to actually codify those passions into 10 distinct archetypes that all of us have within us to greater or lesser degrees. And those passions are really representative of the deeper purpose that drives them to happen. And if we can't figure out, how do I articulate a purpose statement? How do I come off sounding really cool because I've got it together and I know exactly what I'm here to do in the world? I always tell people, look at your passions. What are they showing you? and then trace them back to their origin. And you'll be able to more readily understand what the underlying purpose is that's causing those to be birthed in you. The things you get excited about, the things that have meaning to you, the places where you feel the most alive when you're involved in the work that you do. Those are all signals that you're doing things that are on purpose, right? And it prevents us from getting locked into this framework of thinking there's this one thing that we're here to achieve, and once we've finished with it, we can check out. You know, when the kids are grown, when the dog, you know, crosses the rainbow bridge, and we're free to just hang out and do what we want, then our purpose is complete. And I argue quite the opposite. You are achieving your purpose your whole life. It's being expressed in myriad ways, in myriad relationships and situations that you find yourself in. You are never finished. You are always in that journey. And that's the exciting part, because it always means tomorrow there's going to be something new and cool to do that's associated with how I express this purpose in the world.
So I'm curious that your work is not just limited, of course, to females, right? I mean, you run across the board, male, female, CEOs of all genders. But tell me, what has been your experience with the challenges when you work with women specifically in this way?
So it's really interesting. When I first began this work, which is going on 20 years ago, what I remember is that I had a real demand creation issue. I had a solution looking for a problem, as far as other people in the world were concerned, especially as far as people who were at the executive level, because nobody wanted to talk about this out in the clear, bright light of day, right? They call you behind the office door and they tell you they wanted to have a discussion about purpose and passion and what do you do and how do I feel more excited about my work, et cetera. But it was the women who got it first. Women understood this. Women were looking for something deeper. It wasn't just about chasing after the next rung on the ladder. Women were already looking for meaning, and they were looking for permission to bring meaning to the way in which they showed up in the work setting, the way in which they led people, the way in which they work with their colleagues. So that was really exciting to see. I think now, as I look at this body of work that I do with women, and I do a number of projects where I'm working with creating mentoring and leadership experiences for women inside organizations that are taking women's growth and development seriously. And I find that bringing them back to this common notion of purpose and meaning and passion has been the anchor that many of them needed to feel like, okay, now I've got my feet in something solid and I know how to walk forward from here. And so when I've done this work inside organizations, most of the women who are in these programs are quite often mentored by men. And we need, in order to have that relationship work well and for trust to be developed very quickly, we need some foundation, some language that's common between both the mentee who's female and the mentor who's male. And we use the archetypes as a mechanism for doing that. We help people understand what are your passions and how are those passions maybe different from this person who's mentoring you. And what does it mean for you to establish a relationship together? What are the strengths both of you bring to the relationship? What are the vulnerabilities each of you might struggle with in this year-long process of trying to figure out how to learn and grow together? Because I believe that as women learn and grow through the support and help of their mentors, the mentors are learning and growing too, because they are learning what it's like to be a woman in their organization. What are the obstacles they face, and how can they, as a result of having had this opportunity to mentor a woman, become better leaders themselves?
Thank you so much, Alaina. Carrie, what would you add to that? Like, what challenges have you seen women leaders facing as, like, just what Alaina, referring back to what Alaina was going towards, you know, in terms of like growth within their personal and professional lives?
Well, you know, first of all, all I can do with Alaina when she's talking about the work she does is just say, Ditto, 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 ditto. Okay, so let's start with the ditto. Okay, so let the ditto part. All right, and to add to that, one of the things that we oftentimes talk about leaders, and I was listening to this, and we said that what women leaders are facing, and a lot of the work that I do is just the leading self, like leaders go beyond, and I want to clarify that for our audience is that leadership goes beyond being in an organization. Many women, okay, desire and aspire to be leaders in organizations. And then some of them have no desire to do that. And I want to acknowledge the fact that some of our listening audience may not choose to be leaders in an organization. Leading self is as important. The characteristics and the qualities that we're talking about are as important to lead your household, your children, your partner, your friendship, whatever it is. Leadership in and of itself is so incredibly important. And the work that Alaina does in terms of finding your passion, what drives you, what motivates you, what supports you in waking up in the morning with a song in your heart, if you will. I was in a meeting earlier this morning, and one of the things that we did is we go around and say, how's everybody doing, and come and catching up. And so when they got to me, they said, well, Carrie, how are you? And I'm like, I'm awesome. My life is awesome. You know what I mean? And folks that know me know that that's where I come from, because it's like that's the and Alaina could certainly tell you what my archetype is and everything else. And you all that know me, that this is who I am. And so when I think in terms of the challenges that we face, is going back to the work that Alaina is doing and the work that we do, is like giving yourself permission to step into who you are, whatever it is. And I had a conversation with a client, a coach the other day, and I said, too often we try to fit in situations that don't fit us. And I like to use the analogy of a size shoe. I'm 5'8.5". I wear a size 10 shoe. And it's a no apologies production. I'm good with that. And yet if I see a designer shoe that's a size 9 and it's the only one they have, wisdom is do not buy that shoe because it does not fit. Similarly, if I want to be in an organization because I've heard it's the best organization on the planet, whatever the case might be, it may not work for me. My passion may not connect with what is happening in that organization. Do I make myself wrong, or do I acknowledge and accept that and find those places that connect with me and I connect with them? Because that's where I'm going to be able to do my best work, when I can show up and be my authentic self. And I think that the more we as women, or I can say people in general, primarily we're speaking about women this month, I would say the challenges that we face is that willingness to give ourselves permission to show up and be our authentic self. I think the more we do that, the more powerful we will become, will continue to be, and the more we will be able to help make this shift that we're all seeking and that the world needs and desires.
I want to jump in and just say, I love these are the kind of conversations that need to be had all the time, so that the next generation of females are empowered and know who has come before them and what their challenges are, so they can not take advantage of what they should be empowered to do. And man, I love what you both have just said. I can recall too, going back to that woman that inspired me, impacted me. I can tell you, I knew I could be number one, but I was not ready to want to be a number one. But I was so inspired by her that was something you could do. And now, 20 years later, I'm ready to want to always be a number one, and I'm okay. You know what I mean? Like, I aspire to be that. So I know there's always an evolvement of what we go through in leadership, right? Is following a great leader, but not ready to be the great leader, and then being the great leader and leading the future, right?
I think women are tougher on themselves, though, Selena, at least in my experience. Doing this work with these young women in these mentoring programs that we've created, I find that many of them feel like I've got to have it all together and I've got to have all the answers before I can put my hand up and say, consider me for the job. I mean, if you ask if the job was sweeping floors, they would think they needed a PhD to do it. And you're like, no, you really don't. You're okay. And they all carry some struggle with this notion of imposter syndrome. I've been in a role and I'm doing okay, and maybe it's just dumb luck. And pretty soon they're going to figure out that I'm not as good as they think I am, and then the house of cards is going to come crashing down. And I find men say they experience imposter syndrome too, but I hear it from a lot more women.
Yeah.
And I think for many of us, having examples of other women who have stepped forward and have said to themselves, "I'm going to put myself out on the edge here, and I'm going to go for this," I think helps others feel like, you've got permission to do the same thing. And I think when I see women leaders really helping other women rather than competing with other women, it makes a huge difference in the lives of those younger women following and watching that play itself out. I can remember a time where if you were a woman and you had achieved a significant level in an organization, you might be married, you probably had no children, and you had made conscious sacrifices in other aspects of your life in order to be in that role. Very often sacrificing being overt about who you really are, being as authentically yourself as you might otherwise enjoy. I think that's starting to shift a little bit. Carrie, are you seeing that also in your work? Because I think I'm starting to see women make more conscious decisions to show up authentically and recognize that when they do, they make a bigger impact on other women and on their entire teams. What's the experience? When women rise, they bring everyone with them in the organization.
Absolutely. And in the organization as well as in the world, we see that in the research more and more. Given situations where, like when I did some work, I was doing some research work with women in other countries, and one of the things that was really fascinating when we were trying to think of the name of this particular organization, and we came up with gender empowerment. Okay, so as opposed to women empowerment, again, because in certain parts of the world, you didn't even want to elevate it to, you said women. But then the more we thought about it, it became when in some of these villages where if women were given had the work, not only were they going to make sure there were food on the table, they were going to also teach the children. Okay, whereas with the men, not good, bad, or anything, but just the difference in terms of how we approach things. The men then would take the money and do whatever needs to be done, but it wasn't like, well, let's think about the children, and maybe we need to build the schools, and maybe we need to do this. Women tend to think more, because when women are empowered, and they're the ones that's also, up for the most part, raising the children, and they're raising both, the boys and the girls, okay, or whatever the gender preference is, they're raising the children. So they're teaching the children the next step and what to do. Whereas for the most part, that's not what's happening. So from that perspective, yes, even in organizations, we're recognizing that women take on a different set of responsibilities in addition to the role that they're playing. And the reason, and one of the reasons, I agree with you that one of the reasons why we see it changing is because so many women are stepping up to the plate and speaking up now. That other younger women are able to recognize and acknowledge and see what's possible. Similarly to women of color, I grew up in an environment where I didn't see anyone on TV that looked like me. That's why it was so amazing that Shirley Chisholm. And seeing that and recognizing, like, wow, I didn't even know this was even remotely possible, that I could actually speak my piece and whatnot. And then, of course, you still have to deal with, at that time, the fears on her life and everything else. But now when you turn the TV on, have things changed? And women are stepping up, and women are saying no, and women are saying yes, and women are saying this is unacceptable, and we have more women. I mean, when you look at the Fortune 500, we're still at roughly about 8% that are women CEOs. That was 6% from 1955 until 2 years ago. We're now up to 8%, and go like, wow, that's a small amount. It's still an amount. You know what I mean? And the amount is gradually increasing. So other young women can say, wow, I can do that too. whether it's, women speaking about their gender preferences or, or whatever, just speaking about it from that place. And we're like, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. So that's where exactly what we're saying, where we're supporting and we're seeing more. And the more we see what's possible as we're growing up, the more are willing to say, or more apt to say, if they can do it, and that's how I feel I can do it too.
I also think we have a different generational expectation now than maybe we did 10 or 20 years ago. I think we have a group of people who have come into the workforce with an expectation based on the way their parents advised them to look for a passion and do that as your job. And what has happened is the people in that generation have taken that quote beyond just do it as a job. They've looked to find a passion and build their life around it.
Yeah.
So they're expecting that opportunities will be forthcoming. They're expecting that door will be open for them somehow. And then they get into organizations and they find out, wait a second, this is a little bit more challenging to navigate than I thought.
Yeah.
When they meet other women who have successfully navigated that run the gauntlet, so to speak, it is not only encouraging to them, but I think they look at the women who have done that with the expectation that they are hopefully going to stop and turn around and look behind them and see who they can help step forward. Mm-hmm. And when I think about the things that I've learned and what I can share with others, especially with other women, my mindset goes to, okay, let me think of the 150,000 dumb mistakes I made. Let me tell you about them and fast forward you through them so you don't have to do the same thing and waste so much time, because there's all this cool stuff on the other side of those mistakes. And let's just help you get there, because if you get there faster, we start changing the world for the better faster. So I think we have that responsibility.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because and my approach is, what I'm looking at is I'm isolating. Me, of course, that I study women that are in these positions, and I extract the characteristics that got them there. Like, what are some of these, what I like to call what are some of those little jewels, if you will? What was it? How did you get from point A to point B? And then I use that information to teach other women. Like, here are some of the characteristics, and obviously it's almost like a menu or a dish. You get to look at it and say, you know what, that tastes good to me, or that's something that I can try, that I can do, because I'm looking at those internal or those intrinsic characteristics, and so I can try that on, or I can see that. And I said, look, I've studied all of these women, and right now I'm looking at women in leadership positions internationally as well, because I want to see if there's a difference between some of those characteristics or qualities that they bring, and how might I take that information and use it and turn it into an opportunity to teach other women too. So I think we get to look at it in terms of observing and hearing directly from the women, and then also being able to see the data, the research in a more practical way, to say that, you know what, you can do it too. Like, for example, we know that resilience is a skill that we can teach that. We can teach self-esteem. We can teach, self-efficacy. These are things that we can teach now. And so I continue to look more at those kinds of things, and looking at ways on how can I bring that to other young people, young women, and support them in practicing this and then going out and trying it.
Oh, I agree with you. And I think one of the things that we have to really think about in the body of work that each of us are doing is, how do we make this practical for people? Because I think, as I look at women in the work environment, many of them are coming and saying, how do you do this? I mean, I hear what you're saying, but how do I get started? And, one of the important findings we had when I was developing a tool called the Passion Profiler. It's a psychometric tool that measures these archetypes of passion that I mentioned earlier. One of the things we noticed as we were doing the research is that there was a difference between individuals who had the ability to demonstrate their passions in the work environment and those who were demonstrating other behaviors that were not aligned with their passions. And the most significant difference between those two groups of individuals was the degree to which those individuals engaged in reflection. Did they have a reflective muscle built? And did that reflective muscle apply to their personal lives as well as their work experience life? So what were they getting out of their personal experiences that was helping them learn and grow and formulate a version of themselves that they really wanted to be and present to the world? And then what was happening in the work environment for them that was allowing them to learn and grow about and have deeper understanding of themselves through those work experiences. The ones that did both of those things with great frequency were much more likely to navigate any divide between their passions and how they were operating than those who didn't. So when I get asked that question by women, how do you get started? What do I do first? The first place to go is within. Do reflection. Think about little simple things that you can do to make it easy to reflect, because it doesn't mean that you have to climb a mountain and sit in the lotus position for 3 hours, or go to an ashram somewhere. I mean, it can be done without such elaborate measures. Although, what's the movie with where the woman goes to? I think she goes to an ashram somewhere over in India.
Is it that Eat, Love, Pray?
Yeah, Eat, Pray, yeah.
The concept of Eat, Pray, Love is kind of cool. I mean, I wish I had time to do that. That would be kind of fun. But sometimes it's as simple as getting a journal, and I really am a strong believer in that. And I believe in, pen to paper, and I think there's enough brain science that's proven that when you write things down versus when you type it into some electronic media, it touches off different memory and recall centers in your brain in a powerful way. So, go old school, write it down in a journal. And I tell my clients often, these women, for example, if you want to think about what you're learning about yourself in the work environment, for example, pick a time on a certain day of the week. And I always think, Friday afternoon at 3:00 when things kind of settle down a little bit, and set the intention that you're going to capture some insights in your journal about what you've learned about yourself that week. Just set that intention. Then go outside and take a walk. Put yourself out in nature if you can. Get out of your office or your home office if you can for 20 minutes. Come back, and your job is to list up to 3 bullet points of things you learned about yourself that week. Up to 3 bullet points. Then take a look at the bullet points and ask yourself the question, does this give me any information about what I want to do differently next week, or what I want to do more of next week? Write down that observation. If you keep doing that over time, you'll start seeing patterns. You'll start learning, gosh, this is something I struggled with 6 months ago. It seems like I've mastered it now. I'm getting better at it. This is an insight that I got about myself that's now informed how I want to walk forward with the rest of my career, or how I want to think about that job that was offered me, or how I want to think about how I want to pursue the job that I'm now interested in, or even how I enter into the relationships that I'm enjoying with my colleagues. I'm showing up more authentically, more as the person I want to be, rather than as this corporate costume that I thought I had to don in order to be successful here. So it's really interesting what that little act, 3 bullet points, will do for you.
Anna, I feel like that was the perfect lead-in to our final thoughts, because
it really is.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing, because what you've given us is kind of this framework for this personal recognition of what we've been able to do, where we can go, how we can get there. But when we're talking about women as a whole and the massive achievements and celebrations and all the contributions that they have had over, let's just take the past 2 years, the past 2 years. Like, how can we, and I'm going to throw this question up here so we just have it. How can we ensure that those achievements and contributions are recognized and celebrated, not just during Women's History Month, not just on our personal blog or in our journal, but how do we bring these to the forefront and make sure that other people are hearing and seeing this progress that is being made, and recognize and acknowledge it? I didn't say who I was asking.
I'm going to talk to Alaina first, because you go, and then I want to respond to.
I think the way that we assure they're recognized and celebrated is by we keep talking about it. We don't stop talking about it. We don't stop raising the achievements of women, and shining a bright light on it as often as tell as many people as you can about this over and over again. It bears repeating. And there's plenty of examples out there. So you could probably do it for 365 days and not have to talk about the same person twice. So I think that's where we start. I also believe that we celebrate not just big achievements, which tends to be what people do. When, if you've walked on the moon, we celebrate that. There are small achievements that are heroic every single day that women engage in. I mean, when we talk about the last 2 years, I think of the pandemic period and how many women I saw doing heroic things to get from one end of the day to the other, to keep their families intact, to take care of their children, to be great, people in the workplace, in a workplace that didn't exist. The workplace was on the floor of their bedroom with a Zoom camera and a computer, kind of thing. So we're seeing heroic things all the time, and I think part of our job is to mine for them, to look for them, to open up our eyes and just be aware. And I bet you, if you walk out of the house on any given day, and you with the intention of, I'm going to look for heroism today, I'm going to look for great achievements today, you will find it. We'll find it in both the big and small things.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Carrie, what would you add to that?
Again, what I would basically a lot of the same thing. If you look at what are we doing every single day to remind us of who we are, okay, the power that we yield, because we all have power. So if we're reminding ourselves of that and sharing that, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's with other parents, whether it's in the community, if we're sharing this information, and as we read or hear something that someone just received, a woman just did something very small, and if I share that information, we're sharing it, we're building. And then I would look at Women's History Month like as any other type of celebration. It becomes a much larger celebratory time. The celebration is happening every day, that we're making a conscious commitment, that we're going to be mindful and aware. And when we forget, we have other people to remind us, okay, other women, other people to just remind us of who we are and what we bring to the table, and that our contributions matter and that they are important. We can remind each other of that, and then use March as an opportunity to have like a New Year's celebration kind of thing, all month long, just celebrate a big celebratory time. And the other 11 months of the year, we are doing small celebrations throughout.
Okay. So you know what I love about this live stream the most? I'm just going to tell all of you that what I love about this most is I'm walking away with action items, right? It feels very true to a group of women getting together and talking about how we're going to make change happen. How are things going to be different, right? And we're walking away with action items to write in my journal tomorrow afternoon. What are some things I did this week, and how, 3 things that I learned about myself. Walking away with the action item to reach out to that person that impacted me. Mine happened to be a female in the same position I was in a competing company, and she still mentored me. She was older than I was and still mentored me, even though we had competing objectives, and how much I appreciate that. We're friends to this day because of that openness and willingness, and just to do those little things, that to say that gratitude and to walk away with saying, I have a passion. Here's what it is. I don't know. There's like 5 different action items that you gave us today that I feel like if everyone listening to this were to do those things, you would see that change that we are talking about. The agents of change that women are. So
no, I love this. Specifically, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and we talk about a lot of things that she notices now. And I know she's getting older, and she's like, and I say, just always keep talking. Don't ever let anybody quiet you, always like go for the change. be part of that conversation. Don't ever pull yourself out of it, So I do, like you, Anna, I'm so grateful for this conversation with you, Dr. Carrie, and you, Alaina, because I think I'm going to show this live stream to my 16-year-old, because I'm going to say, look, you want to see some inspirational woman talking about leadership. And, Dr. Carrie, you said not just even professionally, but in your own personal life. So I think this kind of is something that anybody can enjoy. So man, I appreciate this conversation. Yeah, I appreciate this conversation so much, so much today. I'm so grateful. There's that word, gratitude. I didn't think that was going to be a big play of our combo, but it really is,
It has.
Yeah. So, I guess this is the end, everybody.
It is. So I do want to just make a note that I have dropped into the comments. I have dropped a link where you can find more information about Alaina's, the article she's written, her conversation about Purpose Linked. I'm going to throw this up here. This link right here will take you to the whole list of articles that Alaina has done.
Yeah.
And so go and click on that and just read a little bit more. If you were inspired today, you're bound to be inspired by more that's on that page.
Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie, for joining us today. Nuggets of wisdom. That is exactly what has occurred today.
Yeah. Alaina, actually, why don't you share with everybody, Phil, thank you for all your thoughtful words today. Alaina, why don't you share with everybody where you'd love for them to continue the conversation with you, your favorite places?
Please reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, so I'd love if people would connect with me there. And I see that you have that up on the screen, so that's terrific. You can also email me at the Purpose Link website that you see there, thepurposelink.com. Just make it easy. info@thepurposelink.com is easy. It'll get to me eventually. And connect with me on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you.
It's that easy. That easy.
Yes, it is.
And I want to chime in and say that, and it would be worth your while. She's an amazing human being, and I'm so grateful to have her in my world and in my life. So thank you so much, Alaina.
Yes.
Ditto, Carrie. There's that word again.
Ditto. We need to have a shirt that just says ditto with 2 of your photos on it, right? I think that's kind of the thing.
What she said.
That's the way to do it, right?
I love it. Okay, coming soon, we're going to have to talk about this with Dr. Carrie behind the scenes, how we open up a t-shirt shop with fabulous quotes from her live stream guests. And Dr. Carrie, I'm grateful. Me and Anna are so grateful for you for having such wonderful circle of influence in your life that allows us to be part of this. So I know I'm going to be connecting with Alaina in all the places because I want to stay in her stratosphere as well. All right. What is next, Anna?
Well, the next thing that we are going to do, I'm going to drop in the comments also, the inclusion planner from the Folke Institute, our 2023 inclusion planner. It's got holidays and holy days throughout the year. And it's just one of those little things that you can do now as a human being, as a leader in the workplace, as a team member, to just recognize and honor the different holidays and holy days that may be happening around you and the people that might be celebrating them and the experience in their life that brings to them. So we encourage you to grab that inclusion planner and from the link in the comments. And then last but not least, mark your calendars for next month, Diversity Month, April 26th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Our guest, Ron Taylor, who's the head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at, I might butcher this name. Carrie, you might have to jump in, but is it Natixis?
Natixis, yes.
Natixis Investment Managers. Anyway, I've only had a couple of brief conversations with him, but I am already very excited for this next conversation as well. And again, it's going to be all about Diversity Month. Very similar to how today we focus on Women's History Month. Alaina, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me. It was my pleasure. You guys were fun to hang out with.
I know. I feel like we should do like a coffee chat or something. I just got so inspired today. Yeah. I feel so empowered as a woman today. And I want you to know I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate feeling like I am doing something right. And I'm making, even if it may not be that massive change, but I'm making a change.
Yeah.
So
Ditto, Anna. I'm going to use Anna and Dr. Carrie's word. Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who's joined us here today. Carrie, thank you for being here as well. Selena, we want to wish everyone a wonderful rest of the work week, and a fabulous weekend. And we will see you in April for our next, the Folke Institute live stream.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.